So recently, I've been playing through a lot of the more modern Pokemon games. I played through Pokemon Ultra Moon, Pokemon Sword, and even Pokemon Legends Arceus. But there's one Pokemon game that I skipped, and that's X and Y. I skipped X and Y because they had the reputation of being extremely easy, and I wanted something challenging, which is why I played Ultra Moon first, which by the way is pretty hard. I mean, I died way too much to Guzma's goddamn Masquerain, mainly because it outspread all my team and I didn't have any rock moves. But anyway, to make Generation 6 less easy, I chose to do my very first hardcore nuzlocke on my very first playthrough of Pokemon Y. I chose Y over X simply because I like Yveltal better than I like Xerneas. As far as rules go, if you've seen a hardcore nuzlocke before, then none of these rules should be surprising to you. But if you haven't, basically when the Pokemon faints, it's dead forever and I must put it in the box. I can only catch the first encounter on each route. I cannot overlevel my Pokemon past the next gym leader's ace. I can't use healing items like potions during the battle, and I must play the game on the set battle mode instead of switch battle mode. So, with all that being said, let's start the adventure and see if I can beat Pokemon Y on my very first playthrough while doing a hardcore nuzlocke. My journey began with the professor asking the existential question of whether I am a boy or a girl. I eventually choose boy and tell the professor that I am the whitest and most blonde man on the face of the earth. After suffering both mental and physical trauma from the beak of a bird, I get up from my bed and I get ready to embark my Pokemon journey. After doing some running around inside the house, I finally get outside and I meet two girls inside of the Shadow Realm. I'm sure this is how Pokemon Y's intro is supposed to look like, right? I decide to ignore the whirlwind of shadows and I meet up with my quote-unquote friends who I will definitely not forget about during the adventure. Anyway, they asked me for a nickname and I choose Big P because it's funny. For my starter, I decided to go with Fennekin because I'm interested in using a fire psychic type. I almost named Fennekin Furry Bait, but instead I decided to name it North Spirit after the game Spirit of the North, where I think you play a fox. North Spirit also has a bodiless nature which will help when firing embers and eventually Psybeams. Next I am challenged by Pokemon trainer Shauna for my very first Pokemon battle, Pokemon Y. And I just use Ember and her chestpin dies. Apparently the first wild Pokemon encounter you get in Pokemon X and Y will always be a Pidgey, and Pokemon on Route 2 cannot break out of Pokeballs, so I simply beat the Pidgey, I throw a ball, and I catch it. I name her Airbus and add her to my team. She has a joy in nature, which is good for ensuring that Airbus will be able to outspeed most of her enemies. Inside the Centurion Forest, I catch a Panpour, and I name him Monkey. I get through the forest pretty easily, and on Route 3, I catch a Bumblebee. Her name is Bugzit. Just like Airbus, she has a joy in nature, which may come in handy. I go east of Centurion City to Route 22 to battle some trainers and also catch myself a Litleo. I name her Simba. There is one fight on Route 22 that's kind of scary. Rising Star Loic has a Riolu that's level 9 and it knows counter. If I go for the wrong move on Simba, like Tackle, then it's possible that Riolu will simply one-shot me. Luckily, Simba knows a special move with the form of Ember, so all I have to do is spam Ember and Riolu will eventually faint. While clearing out the gym of gym trainers, I happen to fight against youngster David who has level 10 Ladybug. Ladybug misses Supersonic as I go for Gust, which barely does any damage. Airbus is then hit by a Comet Punch that hits all 5 times and crits once as I go once again for Gust, which doesn't do that much. I switch to Bugzet hoping that she'll do more damage as Ladybug lands a Supersonic. On next turn, Bugzet gets confused and gets hit twice by Comet Punch. At this point, I should have probably switched out, but I'm stubborn so I go for Tackle again. And I get hit in confusion again, and Ladybug hits 4 Comet Punches, but Bugzet barely hangs on with 5 HP. I don't want to tempt fate again, so I switched out to Simba and I simply use Ember twice to finish off the Ladybug. It's time for my first gym battle against Viola, the Bug-type gym leader. She leads with Surskit as I lead with North Spirit. My Ember will only do regular damage against Surskit because of its typing, so I switched out to Airbus to hit it with a super effective Gust. As Surskit goes for Water Sport, weakening the power of fire type moves. Surskit goes for Bubble, which does a decent chunk to Airbus, as Airbus goes for Gust, which does about the same damage. Surskit then goes for Quick Attack as I click Gust again. Gust actually kills this time, which must mean that I got a hard roll. Viola then sends out her ace, Vivillon. I switch out to Monkey because Airbus' HP is low and Water Sport is still active. Vivillon hits me with Tackle on the switch in and it barely does any damage to Monkey. And here is where I made a fatal mistake. Instead of switching out to a fire type, I stayed in with Monkey not knowing that Vivillon has Infestation. I'm now basically locked in against it in a 1v1, and I take residual damage every turn from Infestation. Unfortunately, Panpour does not do enough damage to Vivillon to to win a 1v1. And so eventually the monkey dies. Thankfully this is the only death that his team will suffer for the gym battle, because No Spirit just comes in afterwards and spams Ember a bunch and the villain eventually dies. And so with that, I obtained my very first gym badge of the Kalos region. Not without loss, but Penpour isn't that big of a loss. There are a lot of warrior types in the game that are better than him, and he can be easily replaced. With the first badge in hand, I can now go up to round 4 and I catch myself a Flabébé that I named Navi. Navi has a quiet nature, which is one of the best natures you can get on the Florges. I don't know how I'm getting so lucky with all these natures, to be honest. At the end of round 4, I meet with Dexio and Cena, who tell me about the fairy type. It's kind of a surreal feeling to meet them here when I already know them from Ultra Moon. Anyway, after talking to them, I enter Lumio City, and after fighting the camera for a while, I enter Professor Sycamore's lab. The professor challenges me to a battle, saying he's, quote, not that tough, despite having all 3 Gen 1 stars at level 10. He opens up with Bulbasaur as a lead Navi. Navi has no attack that can heal Bulbasaur, so I switch to Simba, as Bulbasaur fires a Vine Whip, which Simba easily tanks. On the next turn I go for Ambro, which does half of Bulbasaur's HP, as Bulbasaur fires back with a Vine Whip that does barely anything. One more Ember is enough to finish off Bulbasaur, and Squirtle comes in next. I stay in with Simba because I think I should be able to live a Water Gun. I go for Headbutt, which does decent chip damage, as Squirtle goes for Water Gun. Water Gun crits and leaves him up with 9 HP. I switch out to Navi, who easily tanks a Water Gun thanks to her very high special defense stat. Navi then fires off 2 Fairy Winds, which is enough to take out Squirtle, and Sycamore then sends in his last Pokemon, Charmander. Charmander goes for Smokescreen as I go for Lucky Chen to protect myself from crits. Afterwards, I switch out to Bugzet as Charmander growls. The rest of the battle is me spamming Mud Slap with Bugzet as Charmander goes for moves like Smokescreen and Scratch. Eventually, Charmander dies to a quick attack from Bugzet, and I am able to claim a victory on Professor Sycamore and his not-so-tough starters. After my victory, I get to pick one of the 3 Gen 1 starters, and I pick Bulbasaur because I think he might be my favorite starter of all time. I name him Naturio after the Naturio archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! Naturio has a neutral nature, which is neither good nor bad. After getting my Gen 1 starter, I go down to the first floor and I meet this totally not evil guy who keeps talking about changing the world. I sure hope he doesn't become the main villain of the game or anything. I mean seriously, you have to wonder if during development they didn't think they were overselling his villainous side a little bit too much. The second time you meet him, he literally says, "Everything beautiful should stay that way forever. I would end the world in an instant so that beauty never fades. I cannot stand the thought of the world becoming uglier. How is this man allowed to roam the streets, let alone run a company?" Anyway, after ignoring the man who said he would end the world in an instant, I make my way to Route 5 and I catch a Skiddo that I name Autogoat. Next on Route 5 is a battle against Pokemon trainer Tierno, who only has a Corphish as I lead with Bugzet. I go for Return, which does decent damage, as Corphish Swords Dances and gets his attack to +2. On the next turn, I go for Bulldoze, which is a dumb move considering that Return would do more damage, and Corphish just goes for Swords Dance again, raising his attack to +4. At this point, I'm pretty sure Bugzet is going to die to Corphish, so I click Return, which leaves Corphish in the red, and Corphish fires a Vice Grip that leaves Bugzet with only 9 HP, barely surviving. Luckily, I'm faster than Corphish, so I only have to click Return once more, and I win the battle. With that scare over, I continue through Route 5, and Naturio eventually evolves into Ivysaur. No Spirit also evolves into Braixen. Eventually, I arrive at Camphor Town, and on Route 7, I discover that Snorlax is blocking the way, which means I need to go up Route 6 to Parfum Palace to get the Pokeflute. On Route 6, an Audino jumps at me from the bushes, and I catch it and name it Fiki. And here is why playing this game blind can be a huge disadvantage. I challenged the Pokemon family Jan and Aaron, and they have 2 Furfroos at level 14. These Furfroos are terrifying because they both know Headbutt, which will do massive damage against any member of my team. And they're also very bulky, making it extremely hard to take any of them down. I decided my best course of action is probably to use Sun Attack on them and Leech Seed them with Naturio. So I switch out Bugzet to Naturio and I go for Sun Attack on Airbus. The Furfroos both outspeed and go for Headbutt on each of my Pokemon slots, flinching Airbus. On the next turn, both Furfroos go for Headbutt on Naturio, who barely survive with 9 HP, as I land a Leech Seed on the male Furfroo and a Sun Attack on the female Furfroo. I switch out Naturio to Simba, as Airbus dodges one Headbutt and tanks another, leaving it with only 2 HP. Thankfully, it's able to land a Sun Attack on the male Furfroo as well. Now here's where I think I made a mistake. I switch out Airbus in No Spirit, and I go for Ember on the female Furfroo. I should have focused down the male Furfroo because it was being leech seeded and taking residual damage each turn. But anyway, the male Furfroo lands a Headbutt on No Spirit, which doesn't do that much, and the female Furfroo growls. On the next turn, No Spirit gets hit by one Headbutt, and I double down with Ember on the female Furfroo as the male one misses. I switch out Noseworthy to Bugzet, and all my hard work is erased on the female Furfru because it's healed to full with a super potion. On the next turn I double the male Furfru with both Pokemon, as Simba is hit by 2 headbutts flinching her. Bugzet then lands a return which doesn't do that much to the male Furfru. I thought Simba would be able to leave another headbutt, but it seems I was wrong and Simba goes down, as Bugzet finishes off the male Furfru. The rest of the battle is now a 2v1 against the female Furfru, which makes it easier to take her down. Unfortunately, on the last turn, when the female Furfru was about to die, she lands a headbutt on Bugzet, which is enough to take her down. There was really nothing I could do because I didn't have any more switch-ins for headbutts, so I have to take that loss. But at least I didn't lose any other Pokemon and I emerged victorious from that very hard battle. So at this point, I have something to confess, but instead of telling it to you, I'm simply gonna show it to you. You see, after the battle with the 2 Furfrus, I boxed the dead Pokemon and replaced them with Autogoat and Fiki. I did some training, which you can see sped up right now, and at the end, when I was going to leave it there for the day, you can see that I did not save the game, and in fact you can even see my cursor going top right towards the close button of the the real 3DS. What this essentially means is that I got sent back to just after I caught Autogoat. I debated whether to kill off Simba and Bugzet for a while, and I decided that it made more sense to just play the game normally from that point, with the only added benefit that I knew about the Furfru battle. I understand that for some people this may compromise the integrity of the run, and to those people, I can only say one thing: I'm sorry. This mistake never happens again for the rest of the run, and in a sense, it lets me showcase what this playthrough would be like if I knew about the Furfru battle and planned accordingly. So, with all that being said, let's rewind time and do the Furfru battle again, but this time with a little more preparation. So on Route 6, instead of Audino, I catch Oddish, but I still name it Audino? Before I get into the Furfru battle, I decide to level up Airbus all the way to level 18, so it can evolve to Pidgeotto, giving it better stats to survive against the Furfrus. Now we have already seen the double battle against the Furfrus once, so I'm simply going to explain what strategy I had going into the battle and how it turned out. So I lead with Simba and Airbus. I let Simba learn Noble Roar because I thought that it hit every Pokemon on the field in a double battle, which is apparently very wrong. So instead, I use Noble Roar on each Furfru to lower the damage of Headbutt, and I send attack with Airbus. Also, I bulldoze with Simba to lower the speed. I switch to Notorio to sleep harder one of the Furfrus and to Bugzet for the raw damage of return. I lower the Furfru speed even further with bulldoze as I switch back into Airbus, who is holding a berry to soak up headbutt damage. Bugzet is actually also holding a berry to soak up headbutt damage, and all I have to do is spam return until both of the Furfrus are dead. And so, with that strategy, I emerge victorious from the dreaded battle without losing a single Pokemon. I make very sure to save my game after winning to prevent any time travel from happening again, and while clearing Route 6, Bugzet eventually evolves into Diggersby. In Pathfinder Palace, I complete the puzzle made for children, and I eventually get the Pokeflute. I go back to Route 7 to wake up Snorlax, and I barely manage to catch it as it's one turn away from dying from its burn. His name is Mime, and I'm sure that's not going to be confusing when I try to talk about me during a battle. Mime has a neutral nature, which is fine, and has the Thick Fat ability, which will be very useful in the future. Next on Route 7 is a double battle between me and Serena, and Cherno and Trevor. Cherno sends out his Coalfish as Trevor sends out the Pikachu. Serena sends out her Fletchling as I send out me. Thanks to Fletchling's flying type, I can safely click Bulldoze and completely obliterate the Pikachu. With Pikachu down, Trevor sends out his last Pokemon, which is Flabebe. Flabebe's defense is kind of laughable, so both me and Serena go for physical moves on it and it dies immediately. The battle is now a 2v1 against Coalfish, and it's a simple kill with chip away from Snorlax and quick attack from Fletchling. And so we win the battle against Cherno and Trevor. I think this battle really shows how strong Snorlax can be, and we'll have many more opportunities to see how strong Snorlax really is. After doing some battles in the Battle Chateau, Navi evolves to Floette. Inside the connecting cave, I catch a Meditite that I name Sci-Fi's, and on Route 8, I catch a Meanfu that I name Haya! Inside of Amber Town, I talk to an old fisherman who gives me his rod. With the old rod in hand, I go back to Pathfinder Palace to catch one of the best Pokemon in Nuzlocke ever. That's Magikarp. His name is Splashster. Splashster? His name is what you see on the screen. On Route 9, I catch a Sandile that I, of course, name King K. Rool. Inside of Glittering Cave, I find a Cubone that I catch and name Orphan. Team Flare is pretty easy to get rid of inside of the cave, and when it's time to choose the fossil, I choose the Jaw fossil, which I'm able to revive immediately inside of Amber Town, and I get a Tyrant with a Calm nature, which is absolutely terrible, so I guess my luck spree with natures has now ended. Going north from Amber Town, I meet the Sky Trainer, and I think to myself, well, I only have Airbus, but surely this can't be this hard anyway. And it turns out that I am absolutely extremely very wrong. Because this Sky Trainer has a level 28 Mantike, 7 levels ahead of Airbus. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that even if I manage to kill this Mantike, he also has a level 29 Jumpluff in the back. I mean, this must be a mistake, right? If you look at the other trainers on the route, the only other trainers that have similar levels are the ones that require Surf. I mean, this must be a mistake, right? Surely this trainer is not supposed to be far at this level. Well, regardless, it's no surprise that Airbus does die from 2 Wild Pulses, which both crit, by the way, from Mantike. Now, I know the game says I blacked out, but I didn't really black out because I didn't go to the Pokemon Center, and the only change in my party is that Airbus is dead. Which is why I'm not considering this a nuzlocke fail and simply a very stupid death for Airbus. Before I fight the gym leader in Silage, I decided to go north to train my Pokemon a little bit, and I face off against Psychic Robert, who has a level 22 Solosis. I lead with King K. Rool thinking that Thief will one-shot Solosis, but to my dismay it leaves Solosis in the red and then it fires back with a hidden power that I assume is Water type, and I get one-shot. Goodbye King K. Rool, you were gone so soon. Also north of Silage, on Route 10, I catch an Electric and I name it Zapdog. And Zapdog is dead. I got unlucky with a Psywave roll from a level 22 Lunatone from one of the gym trainers, and so that was very short-lived. Anyway, dead dog aside, it's time for my second gym battle against the Rock-type gym leader Grant. He opened with Amora as I sent out Navi. Amora goes for a Thunder Wave as Navi goes for Lucky Charm to protect myself from crits. On the next turn, Amora goes for a hard takedown which has a lot of damage against Navi, as Navi goes for Wish, which will heal me at the end of the next turn. Now my plan here was to switch to Naturio, tank a hit, get healed by Wish, and go for something like Sleep Powder. Unfortunately, I severely underestimated the damage that Refrigerate Takedown does from Amora, so Naturio goes down and doesn't even get the chance to be healed by Wish. Amora is part Ice type, so I decided to send out No Spirit to try and get a burn with Ember. I go for Ember, which does decent damage against the Amora, as Amora launches a Thunder Wave which paralyzes me. And here is where I got tricked by Pokemon AI. I was sure that No Spirit would live a single rock move from Amora, so I stayed in to try and get the burn with Ember. Amora for the next few turns will not go for any rock move and instead spams Aurora Beam, which does almost nothing. What I didn't realize is that the only reason Amora is not going for its rock move, which is Rock Tomb, is because No Spirit is already slower than him, thanks to paralysis. Because of that, Amora will only go for Rock Tomb if it sees a kill with it, which is what eventually happens, and No Spirit goes down to a Rock Tomb from Amora after a lot of Aurora Beams. Well, I lost both my starters, so I guess he'll make this pretty more interesting. I switch to me to hopefully spam Bulldoze and finally take down this Amora. I go for Bulldoze as Amora launches yet another Thunder Wave. Luckily, me doesn't get paralyzed, and I hit a hard Bulldoze which almost kills Amora. Amora goes for Aurora Beam, which does pathetic damage as I go again for Bulldoze, which is enough to finish him off. And Grant then sends it Tyrant, his last Pokemon. Tyrant is nothing that me can handle. I click Bulldoze in the next 2 turns as Tyrant goes for Bite, hurting itself thanks to me's Rocky Helmet, and goes down to the second Bulldoze. And so, with heavy losses, I claim my victory on Grant and I obtain the second badge of the Kalos region. So at this point I get myself rare candy so I wouldn't have to train my Pokemon for 20 years. And I evolve Splash. I evolve Magikarp using them. While trying to leave Geosenge Town, I'm interrupted by leader Karina who wants to battle me with her 2 Lucarios. I lead with Simba, but I'm too scared of a fighting type move. So I switch to the Splash Master to intimidate Lucario and lower his attack. But Lucario goes for Soul Stance, so he ends up being +1 attack anyway. I go for Bulldoze on the load of Splashing, as Lucario Soul Stances again, getting his attack to +3. However, Bulldoze does half of Lucario's HP and lets Splashy outspeed, so Lucario dies to a second Bulldoze as it goes for a priority feint, which doesn't do much. The same story goes with the second Lucario, who tries his Soul Stance again, but dies to 2 Bulldozes. I should mention that the Splash of Medan has a minus attack nature, so it's still pretty impressive that it's able to 2-shot Lucarios with Bulldoze. I escape Geosenge Town, and on Route 11 I catch a Stunky that I name Pepe. Inside a Reflection Cave I find a Carbink, I catch it, and I name it Malphite. Speaking of Reflection Cave, do you have any idea how dangerous it is to walk around there without having a Repel on? It's dangerous because you can find Wobbuffets, and they all have the same moveset. You have Counter, Mirror Coat, Safeguard, and Destiny Bond. Now luckily, I never lose a Pokemon to a Wobbuffet, but they are extremely dangerous, and I need to lead with a Pokemon that has Swords Dance every time. Because of course they also have Shadow Tag, which prevents you from switching. So yeah, it was just a quick PSA to warn everyone about Wobbuffets if you ever try to do this challenge yourself. On the way to the next town, Orphan evolves to Marowak, and I arrive into Charlotte City afterwards. I head to the Tower of Mastery, and it's time to battle my rival Serena. She opens up with a female Meowstic as I lead with me. Meowstic goes for Fake Out, and I think my Rocky Helmet dealt more damage to her than Fake Out did. On the second turn, Meowstic goes for Disarming Voice, which does laughable damage, and Me goes for a Hard Body Slam, which puts Meowstic close to the red. Me then gets hit by a Sire Beam, which does manage to get the Confusion, but Me breaks through Confusion and hits another Body Slam, which is enough to KO Meowstic. Absol is then sent in, so I switch to the Splashing to lower its attack with Intimidate, as Absol goes for a -1 bite, which doesn't do that much. I switch to Navi, and Absol again goes for bite, which doesn't do much. Absol then goes for Slash, which does a lot of damage against Navi, as Navi sets up a Wish. Very stupidly, I stay in with Navi, but perhaps even more stupidly, Absol goes for bite instead of Slash, which means Navi survives, and hits Absol with a Fairy Wind, and also gets the recovery from Wish. Absol hits a quick attack, and Navi hits another Fairy Wind, which puts Absol in the red. I switch to me as Absol goes for another quick attack, and he kills himself on the Rocky Helmet. Serena sends in her last Pokemon, a level 30 Frogadier. Frogadier goes for quick attack, taking some Rocky Helmet chip damage, as Me hits a Yawn. Frogadier goes for yet another quick attack on the next turn, and Me goes for Bulldoze, lowering its speed. Now, I am of course very stupid, so I switch Simba in to get the XP from Frogadier. I hit a Headbutt, which puts Frogadier in Torrent range, and even after a Bulldoze, Frogadier still outspeeds after waking up on the next turn, and one-shots Simba with a Weather Pulse. Goodbye, all of my fire types. Anyway, I switch into Hiya! And I go for Fake Out, which is still not enough to kill Frogadier, so I have to go for a Force Palm in the next turn to finally finish off this battle and win against Serena. And here is another showcase of the dumb mistakes I made near the start of the playthrough. While carrying the gym, I battle against Roller Skater Sean, and I easily dispose of his Pancham with Navi and 2 Fairy Winds. His throw, however, is another story. He has Seismic Toss, which will always deal 27 HP of damage. I use Wish and I set up a grassy terrain to survive where it throws at me. I then switch to Malphite to set up a Reflect, again to increase my survivability. However, I make the fatal mistake of thinking Navi is gonna live any attack thanks to Reflect, because Throw simply ignores the effect of Reflect and deals 27 HP of damage through it, killing Navi, who only had 26 HP. Luckily, I easily dispose of the rest of his team after that death. And now I just have to find a replacement for Navi. Thankfully, I don't have to go very far for a replacement, because I have Audino in my PC, so I just use a Leaf Stone to turn it into a Vileplume, and it takes the place of Navi in my team. Audino also has a very good nature, it's plus special attack and minus defense. It is now time to face my third gym leader, and boy is this gonna be a long battle. My strategy for the Karina fight was the following. Despite not knowing their Pokemon, as this is of course a blind playthrough, I knew that most likely all our Pokemon would be physical attackers. So that meant that a Splash to end all Splash would be very useful in this battle thanks to Intimidate. My plan was just to lead with Splashtastic to intimidate the first Pokemon, which happens to be a Minfu, switch to Malphite to set up a Reflect, and then switch to Orphan to set up Swords Dance and hopefully sweep thanks to Orphan's good defense. Orphan was also holding a berry to survive hits better in case Karina's Pokemon got crits. What I didn't anticipate is that all of Karina's Pokemon know Power Up Punch, a move that raises her attack by 1 stage, cancelling out Intimidate and making Swords Dance harder to set up with Orphan. I'm still able to get rid of the Minfu with the +2 Bone Meringue from Orphan, but he's not going to be able to sweep the rest of her team. With the Minfu down, Karina then sent in her Alucha. I hit the Alucha once with Orphan since I'm still a +2 attack. I then switched to Malphite to set up a Reflect again, and then took Call of Splashes to lower the Alucha's attack. Alucha does pretty pitiful damage against Splasher Field, and so all I have to do to take her down is to spam Dragon Rage, and after 2 heals from Karina, the Alucha simply dies to even more Dragon Rages, as it inexplicably sets up Horn Claws. Karina's last Pokemon is Machoke. I almost stayed in and Dragon Raged him, but then I remembered that Machoke can learn Rock Tomb, so I switch out to Malphite and set up the last Reflect of this battle. A quick switch to Audino lets me put Machoke to sleep, and Hiya! Then comes in to set up a Swords Dance and finish the job with a few Force Bombs. And so I vanquish Karina and get the 3rd badge of the Kalos region. Also, this is the first gym leader battle that I win without losing a Pokemon. After getting the badge, I go to the top of Mastery Tower, where Karina wants us to have a battle where we both have a Lucario that can Mega Evolve. Now this battle is more of a cutscene than a real battle, because the Lucario isn't technically in my party yet, and when you lose, nothing happens. Like, it doesn't say you won it out or anything, it just cuts to black and the story continues on. So I do lose because I go for Bone Rush thinking that it will do more damage than Power Up Punch, and I am extremely wrong and our Lucario kills me. But like I said, it doesn't really matter because this battle is a cutscene, and afterwards she gives me a Lucario and I add it to my team and I name him Revenant. Revenant has a plus speed minus defense nature, which is okay, although the minus defense may prove to be a detriment in the future. On Route 12 I just straight up get given an Lapras and I name it Boat. Boat is extremely bulky and has a neutral nature and water absorb, so he'll definitely be useful in the future. Before I enter the Coumarine gym, Serena wants to have another battle with me. She leads with her Meowstic as I lead with me. Meowstic sets up a light screen, which is the wrong screen to use against the Snorlax, as me goes for Yawn and lands it. Meowstic then goes for Disarming Voice, which does negative damage, as me lands a Body Slam, which does a little less than half, and Meowstic goes to sleep thanks to the effect of Yawn. On the next 2 turns, I go for Body Slam with me as Meowstic sleeps, and it's enough to take Meowstic down. Serena then sends in her Absol. Absol goes for by doing decent damage against me, as it hurts itself on the Rocky Helmet, and me lands a Yawn. On the next turn, Absol hurts itself on the Rocky Helmet again with Slash, as me goes for Rock Tomb to lower Absol's speed. Absol also goes to sleep thanks to Yawn. Absol being asleep means I can get a risk-free switch to Revenant. Revenant then Mega Evolves, and after a very long animation, he hits 1 Power-Up Punch and it's enough to take Absol down. Serena's last Pokemon is a Frogadier. Before Frogadier can do anything, Revenant hits a critical hit Power-Up Punch and it just goes down immediately. And this concludes the battle against Serena. It shows how powerful Megas are. It's a shame the game gives you almost none of them except Lucario until the post-game. And with that, it's already time for my 4th gym battle against Ramos, the Grass-type gym leader. His first Pokemon is Jumpluff as I lead with the World of Splashcraft, and thanks to Intimidate, Jumpluff's attack is already at -1. On the first turn of the battle, Jumpluff goes for Acrobatics, not doing very much damage, and Star Splash hits an Ice Fang, one-shotting the Jumpluff. Ramos then sends in Go-Goat, and I'm afraid of it having Rock Tomb, so I switch to Audino, as Go-Goat actually goes for Grass Knot, doing literally 0 damage thanks to Black Sludge recovery. Go-Goat then goes for Takedown, doing a decent chunk of damage, as Audino hits a Venoshock doing half of Go-Goat's HP. Go-Goat then takes down again, crits, leaves Audino with 11 HP, and another Venoshock is enough to take him down. Ramos' last Pokemon is Weeping Bell, so I switch out to Boat and easily tank an Acid. Boat outspeeds and goes for Ice Beam, which obliterates Weeping Bell. And just like that, I obtain the 4th badge of the Chaos region, and I'm on a streak of not losing Pokemon to gym leaders. On Route 13 I catch a Dugtrio and I name it Piff. Inside of the Power Factory I battle Team Flagrant and he leads with Scraggy as I lead with Malphite. I set up a Reflect as Scraggy goes for Payback, doing almost no damage. I switch Revenant in, thinking Reflect will protect me from whatever Scraggy throws at me, and Scraggy lands a crit high jump kick, killing Revenant instantly, and making it so I will never use another Mega in this game again. I'm then able to dispose of the rest of the Grunt's team without too much effort, but losing my only Mega of the playthrough does hurt my team a lot, and also invalidates this generation's entire gimmick. No other incidents happen, and so I'm ready at my 5th gym battle against the Electric-type gym leader, Clement. He leads with an Emolga as I lead with Orphan. The Emolga goes for Aerial Ace, but thanks to Orphan's good defense, it doesn't do much damage, as Orphan lands a Rock Tomb, dealing half of Emolga's HP and lowering its speed. On the next turn, both Pokemon go for the same move as last turn, and Orphan lands another Rock Tomb, which is enough to finish off Emolga. Clement's next Pokemon is Heliolisk, and I'm afraid of Grass Knot, so I switch out to me, as Heliolisk goes for Quick Attack, taking Rocky Helmet chip damage. On the next turn, Heliolisk reveals that he does have Grass Knot, and it does quite a lot of damage to me. I'm also surprised to learn that it triggers Rocky Helmet. Me also goes for Bulldoze, lowering Heliolisk's speed and putting it in the red. Clement heals Heliolisk, but thanks to Bulldoze, me now outspeeds Heliolisk and another Bulldoze is enough to finish him off. Clement's last Pokemon is Magneton. It sets up electric terrain and survives Bulldoze thanks to Sturdy. After a turn of healing and triggering Sturdy again, me outspeeds and ends the battle with one last Bulldoze, earning me the 5th badge of the Kalos region against Clement, the Electric-type gym leader. On Route 14, Serena challenges me to yet another rival battle, where, as always, she leads with Meowstic, and I lead with Orphan. On the first turn, Meowstic goes for Fake Out, so nothing happens because Orphan flinches. Meowstic then sends up a light screen as Orphan goes for Thief, doing a little less than half of Meowstic's HP. The Meowstic then launches a hard Psychic, doing exactly 40 damage to Orphan, as Orphan uses Thief again and puts Meowstic in the red. Now I know I'm in range of a crit, but the game never punishes anyone for staying in, right? So Orphan easily survived this, Orphan gets crit and dies. Oh well, it's not that big of a loss. After all, I do have a dog show in the PC. I send in Pepe next, and Meowstic really can't touch me because of my typing. So after thinking easily a disarming voice, I go for Thief, and it's enough to finish off the Meowstic. Serena's next Pokemon is Absol. I go for Toxic, which is guaranteed to land because I'm a poison type, as Absol sets up a Soul Stance, getting his attack to +2. On the next turn, Pepe gets hit by a Quick Attack, doing decent damage, and fires back with a Poison Jab, doing more than half of Absol's HP. The Absol does not go for Quick Attack on the next turn, which means that Pepe outspeeds and can go for another Poison Jab, finishing off the Absol. Serena's last Pokemon is, of course, Greninja. Greninja goes for a Shuriken, and it's time to show how slow multi-hit moves are. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. As Pepe goes for Toxic. Pepe's health is a little low, so I switch to Audino, who easily tanks a Water Shuriken. Now, I was scared of Greninja having Ice Beam, but as it turns out, Serena is a very bad trainer. Why? Well, it's simply because her Greninja only has 2 moves, Quick Attack and Water Shuriken. So it literally cannot touch Audino, and Audino can go for Mega Drain twice and win the battle. And by win the battle, I mean have to wait an excruciatingly long time for Water Shuriken to end, as it hits 4 times on the last turn. But anyway, with that battle over, I can go to Route 14 and catch a Quagsire named Stare. Inside the scary house on the route, I get scammed and vomit from the horrible camera job, and afterwards I make it to Lava Town, where I catch a Basculin named Piranha. It seems gyms are really starting to speed up, because it's already time for my 6th one against Valerie, the Fairy-type gym leader. She leads with a Mawile as I lead with Pepe. Pepe hits a hard flamethrower, putting Mawile in the red, as Mawile goes for a useless iron defense. Valerie completely wastes both of her potions by healing Mawile, as Pepe just goes for Flamethrower, which cannot miss, and so eventually Mawile does go down. Valerie's next Pokemon is Mr. Mime. Despite setting up a Reflect, a Poison Jab from Pepe still does very good damage. Pepe then tanks a Dazzling Gleam and finishes off the Mr. Mime with another Poison Jab. Valerie's last Pokemon is Sylvion. I go for Toxic to slowly drain the Sylvion's HP, as the Sylvion goes for Dazzling Gleam, doing decent damage against Pepe. I switch to Audino, tanking a Dazzling Gleam easily as it's not very effective. Thanks to Sylvion being poisoned, Thundershock deals double damage, and so Audino is able to absolutely destroy Sylvion with a single Thundershock and win me the battle. And with that, I only have 2 badges left to go and I can challenge the Elite Four. On Route 15 I catch a Leopard named Divecat. In the Lost Hotel I catch a Magneton named Police, in reference to the Mystery Dungeon games. And finally on Route 16 I catch a Pumpkaboo named Treat. Speaking of Pumpkaboo, while exploring Route 16 I encountered this one in the grass, and I'm convinced Piff will be able to one-shot it with Shadow Claw. Shadow Claw doesn't kill however, and I have all the time to contemplate my mistake as Pumpkaboo slowly kills Piff with a Bullet Seed hitting 3 times. Now I'm skipping over a lot of the Team Flare stuff, mainly because it's pretty easy and I don't lose any Pokemon, but I thought the encounter inside Frost Cavern was worth mentioning. Why does the Grunt have 2 Pokemon, while the admin, aka the final boss of the place, only has a single Houndoom that goes down immediately to a jump kick? Honestly, these Team Flare events might be where people call this game too easy. Opposing trainers in general just don't have enough Pokemon. The battles against Serena are getting pretty tiresome, mainly because she always has the same team. So I'll just give a quick summary of how this one went. As always, she leads with Meowstic, and Pepe easily deals with her using Night Slash. Next is a Flareon, and after 2 Dragon Dances, Mind Splash takes it out with a Bulldoze. Greninja then comes in, and I end up switching to Haya to take it out, and Haya also takes out her Absol, finishing the battle. And you guessed it, it's already time for another gym battle, against Olympia and her Psychic types. She leads with a Sigilyph as I lead with Pepe. Sigilyph sets up a Reflect, making Night Slash not do as much damage as it normally would. Sigilyph then goes for Air Slash, but thankfully Pepe does not flinch, and he is able to go for another Night Slash. Sigilyph's next Air Slash actually misses, and so Pepe is able to go for a final Night Slash to take her down. Olympia's next Pokemon is Slowking. I switched to Stare as the Slowking hits a Yawn. Stare hits a Toxic, and I'm very glad he did, because Slowking starts to set up using Calm Mind. Stare falls asleep, so I switch to me as the Slowking gets to +2 special attack, +2 special defense using another Calm Mind. Me goes for a hard body slam doing very good damage as the Slowking hits a Yawn. Olympia heals her Slowking, but another body slam and the toxic damage is enough to bring her back into red health. Olympia heals her Slowking again with the next turn, as Mii is fast asleep because of Yawn. For some reason, Slowking sets up another Calm Mind, taking it to +3/+3, as Mii is still fast asleep. Mii is able to tank a +3 Psychic thanks to his very high special defense, and Slowking simply dies to the toxic damage. Olympia's last Pokemon is a Meowstic. I switch to Pepe on a Fake Out, which doesn't do much damage. Meowstic sets up a Calm Mind, but Pepe's Night Slash is physical, so it still does more than half of her HP. Pepe is hit by a +1 Shadow Ball, which doesn't do anything, and finishes off the battle with another Night Slash. I'm really glad I'm not losing any more Pokemon to gym leaders, honestly, and I only have one left until the Elite Four. But before I can find the last gym leader, first I have to deal with Team Flare, because Lysander just sent a holoclip to everyone saying he's going to destroy the world. Who could have seen this coming? Well, anyway, I go to Lumio City and I challenge Lysander for the first time. He leads with a Minfu as I lead with my own Minfu. I set up a Swords Dance and he does just the same. Thanks to my level advantage, I'm faster and the Minfu goes on to a Jump Kick. Lysander's next Pokemon is a Murkrow. Hiya! It's a U-turn dealing insane damage to Murkrow and putting it in the red, as I switch into Splash Man for the Intimidate, lowering Murkrow's attack and easily taking his Aerial Ace. An Ice Fang on the next turn is enough to finish off the Murkrow. Next is Lysander's very own Gyarados. I switch into Mii as the Gyarados goes for Outrage, taking some Rocky Helmet chip damage. I switch back to Toon Splash to intimidate the Gyarados so it does less damage. I do this Song and Dance one more time, getting the Gyarados to -2 attack, as it keeps outraging and eventually becomes confused. I go for Ice Fang on Meta Splash, putting the Gyarados close to red health as it keeps going for Outrage. I switch into Stare, who can easily tank an Outrage from the Gyarados. Stare tanks another hit from the Gyarados and finishes them off with the Rock Tomb. Lysander's last Pokemon is a Pyroar. I go for Earthquake on Stare, thinking that it should kill, but the Pyroar lends a Hyper Voice and just kills Stare instead. I send Hiya in. The Pyroar lends a Fire Blast, which actually does less damage than I thought, and Hiya hits a Drain Punch, restoring all its health. The same turn repeats with Pyroar hitting a Fire Blast, and Hiya hitting a Drain Punch, finishing off the Pyroar. And that's the first battle against Lysander done. But there will be more to come. I did lose Stare, but overall it was not a bad battle. Walking on the lab, Hiya finally evolves into Minchao. Eventually I do get the elevator key, and it's time to be lore dumped. Look, I don't dislike the lore of this game, although being the next game after Black and White would make any story feel more bland in comparison. I will say that I like the mention of dark topics like war. It's not something you usually see in a Pokemon game. But overall, I'm not personally super invested into lore. I mean, like as long as it's not a very stupid story, it's fine. Although I do have one gripe with this cutscene. It's extremely long and you can't really make it go faster. Regardless, it's time to fight Team Flare Xerosek. He leads with a Crobat as I lead with Police. Police easily tanks an X-Scissor and takes down the Crobat with a Thunderbolt. Sephiroth's last Pokemon is Malamar. Now trust me, I did consider very strongly that Malamar probably has Contrary, but somehow my brain still said, go to the final splashdown for the Intimidate. And so I did, taking a +1 superpower to the face. Anyway, I hit Malamar with an Aqua Tail, and thanks to my King's Rock, he flinches. I go for another Aqua Tail, but Malamar hits a double damage payback and obliterates the Blue Eyes Splash Dragon. I switch it to Audino, hoping that I can end a Dazzling Gleam which would finish off the Malamar. Unfortunately, Malamar outspeeds and goes for Psycho Cut, killing Audino instantly. Next I set in Pepe. Pepe hits a Poison Jab and somehow the Malamar survives but does get poisoned. He then hits a Superpower Crit, killing Pepe, but thanks to the Aftermath ability, it takes down the Malamar. And so after this terrible carnage, I do win the battle. I guess I have to look for my PC to find replacements. Did I have to press a red or a blue button? I don't know. I just press a red one and I hope the world explodes. Unfortunately it doesn't, and instead this big thing pops up in Geosenge Town. So I go there and it's time to fight Lysander again with some new members of the team. He leads with Minchao and I lead with Police. Not a great matchup to start. So I switch to Treat hoping to catch Minchao on a high jump kick, but instead he goes for Soul's Dance. Soul's Dance is fine though, because surely Treat is able to wall this Minchao completely, right? So he goes for Acrobatics and immediately kills Treat. I switch it to Piranha, with a plan to use his Reckless ability which powers up Double Edge. I should be able to do enough damage to Lysander's Minchao to then switch my own in and finish his off. So as planned, I go for Double Edge and Minchao gets down to almost red health, and he takes down Piranha with a single high jump kick. Still following the plan, I switch it to Higher. I land a high jump kick and I avoid the entire sweep of my team. Next is Lysander's Honchkrow. I go for U-turn and I switch to Police, who easily tanks an Aerial Ace from Honchkrow. Police then outspeeds and fires a deadly Thunderbolt. Lysander then sends in his Gyarados. I think I outspeed the Gyarados, so I go for Thunderbolt, which should one-shot. But instead the Gyarados outspeeds and one-shots Police with an Earthquake. Well anyway, I send in Mime next. Mime tanks an Aqua Tail and fires back with a Body Slam that does half of Gyarados' HP and gets the para. Mime then lands a completely free Body Slam because the Gyarados gets completely paralyzed. And one last Body Slam is enough to finish off the Gyarados. Pyroar is once again the last Pokemon. Mime tanks a Hyper Voice and lands a Yawn. On the next turn, Mime tanks yet another Hyper Voice and lands a Body Slam doing half of Pyroar's HP. The Pyroar is not asleep thanks to Yawn, so I switch it to Tyrantrum. And yes, he doesn't have a name because you don't get to name fossils. Anyway, Jaws hits an Earthquake and the Pyroar goes down. And so I win my second battle against Lysander. And now I'm gonna have to scratch my head and think about which Pokemon to replace the 3 that died. It is time to catch the legendary Pokemon of this generation, Yveltal. Now, I am going to use Yveltal for this playthrough, and I know a lot of people think legendaries are too OP to use in Nuzlocke. And you know what? I agree. Legendaries are very good Pokemon, but I also want you to remember that this is my very first playthrough of Pokemon Y, and also my very first real try at a Nuzlocke. So yes, I am going to use Yveltal, and it's going to be a great member of my team. And his name is going to be Reaper. It's also time for the final battle against Lysander, wearing his best Dr. Octopus cosplay. He leads with his Minchao and the game forces me to lead with Reaper. It's time for some sweet revenge against this Minchao who killed 2 of my Pokemon last time. A single Oblivion Wing obliterates him. Next is Pyroar. The Pyroar lands a Fire Blast as Reaper lands a hard Dark Pulse. I'm kind of afraid of a crit, so I switch into Mime, who tanks the Fire Blast pretty well. Mime also tanks a Hyper Voice pretty well, and finishes off the Pyroar with a Body Slam. Lysander's next Pokemon is his Honchkrow. For some reason I decided to stay in, even though Honchkrow could have superpower, but luckily he doesn't, and instead he goes for Night Slash. I almost died from that, and I hit him back with a Yawn. I switch it to Haya, and I tank a crit Night Slash as he falls asleep thanks to Yawn. I set up a Swords Dance as Honchkrow sleeps. A Drained Punch is enough to finish off the Honchkrow, and I'm all set up for the final Pokemon, Mega Gyarados. So as planned, Gyarados Mega evolves, but Haya outspeeds and takes him out with a single high jump kick. And there we go. Lysander throws his VR headset to the ground, and I win the battle without losing a single Pokemon. And blah blah blah, and we save the world, the thing goes back down, and I can get back on to my gym challenge. On Route 18, I catch a Hitmore that I named Not Durant. Also, I lost some footage here, but I also call a Sand Slash in Terminus Cave that I named Sonic. I guess you just have to trust me that I got this Sand Slash legit, but I don't know why I would lie about a Sand Slash in the first place. Inside Terminus Cave, I enter a battle against Rangers Fern and Lee. They have a Nidoking and a Nidoqueen, as I lead with Jurassic and Haya. I go for Earthquake on tracks as I switch Haya into Reaper, making it so that Nidoking goes for Earth Power on a Flying type, and Nidoqueen hits a chip where it doesn't do much. On the next turn I go for Oblivion Wing on the Nidoqueen, and it barely survives in red health, and then they both go for Earth Power on Tyrantrex, who ends up dying unfortunately. At least I don't lose any of the Pokemon for this battle, as I switch into Boat, and I just click Surf. I arrive to Koreatown afterwards, and Professor Sycamore wants to have a battle with me as he has all the evolved forms of the Gen 1 starters. He leads with the Venusaur as I lead with Haya. I go for Acrobatics, putting Venusaur's health in the red, as Venusaur hits me with Worry Seed? Well, being a professor, he doesn't really teach his Pokemon any good moves, does he? On the next turn I simply go for Acrobatics again, and the Venusaur goes down. Next comes in Blastoise. I go for U-turn and switch it to Autogoat, as Blastoise goes for Aqua Tail, which again is not a great move for a Blastoise. He then sets up an Iron Defense, making him able to live Horn Leech from Autogoat. Unfortunately for him, he is not able to live a second Horn Leech, and so the Blastoise goes down. And yes, you guessed it, the last Pokemon is indeed Charizard. I switch it to me as Charizard goes for Slash? Okay, this professor is really not smart, is he? Anyway, he then hits me with a Flame Burst of all things, as me goes for a Body Slam doing half of his health. One more Body Slam is enough to finish off the Charizard and win against Professor Sycamore and his very, very weird team. I mean, it would have been kind of threatening if they actually had good moves, but they don't. Alright, it's time for the final gym battle against Wolfric, the Ice-type gym leader. He leads with an Aboma Snow as I lead with me. I go for Yawn as he hits an Ice Shot that does no damage. On the next turn, me gets hit with an Energy Ball and retaliates with a Heavy Slam, doing half of Aboma Snow's HP, as he goes to sleep thanks to the effects of Yawn. On the next turn I switch to Haya as he keeps sleeping. I set up one bulk up as Abomasnow still sleeps. I set up another as he wakes up and goes for Ice Beam. I'm now +2 attack +2 defense, so a Drain Punch is enough to finish off the Abomasnow. Next comes in Cryogonal, and it also dies to a single Drain Punch. Wolfix's last Pokemon is Avalugg. Alright, well I'm still +2/+2, so this Drain Punch should kill. It doesn't, alright. The other goes for Avalanche, but I'm +2 defense, so it's fine. And I get crit and die. Honestly, that was a very unlucky death. But anyway, I guess it's bound to happen. I switch it to Boat next. I land a Toxic as the Avalugg goes for a Curse. Wolfix then heals Avalugg with a Hyper Potion, but thanks to Surf and the poison damage, he goes back to about the same health he was. One more Surf is enough to finish off the Avalugg and win me the final gym badge. Honestly, I lost a very good member of my team, but regardless, I think I should be able to make it through the Elite Four. I guess we'll see. On 121, I catch a Floatzel that I name Liveguard. He has a minus attack nature, so that sucks, but maybe I'll still be able to use him. On Victory Road, I catch a Girder and I name her Vayne. And she has the exact same nature as Floatzel. Well, that sucks, but at least she has guts, so maybe I also can do something. Alright, it's time for the final battle against my rival Serena. She opens up with her Meowstic as I lead with me. Me tanks a Psychic really easily and retaliates with a Crunch, putting Meowstic's health in the red. Another Psychic is easily tanked, and another Crunch takes on the Meowstic. Greninja is Serena's next Pokemon. I switch it to Autogoat hoping for a Water Shuriken, but Greninja goes for Dark Pulse instead. I'm scared of an Ice Beam, so I switch it to Boat, and indeed, Greninja does go for Ice Beam. On the next turn, Greninja hits a Dark Pulse, and unfortunately Boat flinches. Another Dark Pulse crits, but I finally land a Toxic. I switch Reaper in on the Dark Pulse to build up some Toxic damage. Greninja then hits a crit Ice Beam, but Reaper manages to survive, and goes for a U-turn, which guarantees that Greninja will die from Toxic damage. So I switch in Sonic. Serena then sends in a brand new Pokemon on her team, Altaria. Altaria fires a Dragon Pulse and Sonic retaliates with a Rock Slide, doing half of Altaria's HP. Altaria goes for another Dragon Pulse, putting Sonic in the red, but luckily Rock Slide lands, and Altaria goes down. Next is Flareon. I switch it to me to tank a Lava Plume. The second Lava Plume burns me, and Mii's Body Slam as a result is greatly weakened. I risk Mii's life by staying in, so I can go for a Yawn. And luckily the Lava Plume and burn damage is not enough to kill me. I switch it to Boat, and because Mii's health is so low, Flareon is going for a kill move in the form of Quick Attack, but it's way weaker than Lava Plume, so Boat doesn't take as much damage. Flareon falls asleep, but apparently it doesn't matter because Boat outspeeds anyway, and hits a Surf that takes down the Flareon. Serena's last Pokemon is Absol. Originally I thought this was Mega Absol, but it turns out that's not the case, and Absol sets up a Swords Dance as Boat hits a Surf. I stay in hoping to finish off the Absol with another Surf, but he hits a crit Night Slash and Boat unfortunately dies. I then send in Sci-Fi's. Sci-Fi's barely survives Night Slash and is able to land a high jump kick to finish off the battle against Serena. After Serena, I encounter Ace Trainer Michelle, and she leads with the Macargo as I lead with Liveguard. Liveguard hits a waterfall, one-shotting the Macargo, but gets burned by Flame Body. Next comes in the Demon, Scissor. Liveguard's burn halves his attack, so I switch him out to go into me, as Scissor sets up a Swords Dance. I go for Yawn and Scissor sets up another Swords Dance, now he's at +4. I switch to Sonic thinking he has high enough defense to survive, but X-Scissor one-shots him, which means I was wrong. But anyway, Sonic wasn't that important of a team member anyway, so I switch into Reaper and I go for 2 Oblivion Wings, which is enough to take down the Scissor and win me the battle. Next in line is Veteran Katrina. She has a Glaceon and I lead with Reaper. I go for U-turn and I switch to Sci-Fi's, as the Glaceon goes for a crit Blizzard and kills Sci-Fi's. With Sci-Fi's dead, I switch to using Vayne instead, and I burn her using the Flame Body ability of a Litwick, so I can have Guts enabled. So with a team of Heatmore, Gogoat, Yveltal, Floatzel, Snorlax, and Conkeldurr, it's time to tackle the Elite Four. And our first opponent is Malva, the Fire-type Elite Four member. She leads with the Pyroar as I lead with Liveguard. I go for a Waterfall, putting the Pyroar's health in the red, as the Pyroar hits a Hyper Voice, doing a little less than half of Liveguard's HP. Malva then wastes 2 full restores and I just keep clicking Waterfall, and eventually the Pyroar goes down. Malva then sends in her Talonflame. After much debate with myself, I switch to me, and me takes a Brave Bird decently well. Talonflame goes for Flare Blitz, taking really insane recoil, and me goes for a Thunderbolt, finishing her off. Yeah, Snorlax can learn Thunderbolt apparently, and I taught it to him for coverage. The next Pokemon that comes in is Torkoal, and luckily he does not have Drought. I'm a little scared of Torkoal having Eruption, and I don't think I can switch any Pokemon into that. So I go for a Body Slam, I get lucky, I paralyze, and the Torkoal gets paralyzed. On the next turn I go for Body Slam, and it seems my luck is not gonna stop anytime soon, because I get a crit and the Torkoal goes down. Oh, and by the way, he did not have Eruption. He has Flame Wheel? What a weird move. Anyway, Malva's last Pokemon is Chandelure. The Chandelure goes for a Confuse Ray, but me breaks through and manages to land a Yawn. I switch to Nodurant and I eat up Chandelure's Flamethrower with Flash Fire. Nodurant then hits Chandelure with 2 Thief as Chandelure keeps sleeping, and I win the battle against Malva, the first Elite Four member. The next one is Wickstrom, the Steel-type Elite Four member. He leads with a Klefki as a lead with Autogoat. The Klefki sets up some spikes and Autogoat goes for an Earthquake, doing very good damage. The Klefki then sets up more spikes, so I decide to start bulking up. Before the Klefki has a chance to attack me, I go for an Earthquake and finish him off. Wickstrom then sends in his Scissor. I'm scared of the Demon going for Soul Stance, so I hit an Earthquake as the Scissor hits an X-Scissor. And we do about half our HP each. I switch it to Nodurant because, well, the only reason he's on the team is to take down Pokemon like Scissor. And he tanks an X-Scissor pretty well, and after taking a Night Slash as well, he takes on the Scissor with a Flamethrower. The next Pokemon is a Probopass. I'm pretty sure he's going for Power Gem, but I still switch in Reaper because he has a very high special defense stat. And indeed, he tanks it like it's nothing. I know he's going for another Power Gem, so I go for U-turn to break it sturdy, and I switch into Vayne. Vayne is hit by a Flash Cannon, but it's not enough. And she hits a gut-boosted superpower which destroys her Probopass. Wickstrom's last Pokemon and Ace is Aegislash. I switch it to me, hoping for a Ghost move, but instead the Aegislash goes for Iron Head and does good damage against me. I know he must have Sacred Sword, so I switch to Reaper and he does indeed go for Sacred Sword. I go for Dark Pulse, but unfortunately the Aegislash decides to go for King's Shield, which means I have to sit for the animation of him changing the stance, then going for King's Shield, and then me not doing anything. On the next turn, Reaper hits a Dark Pulse and I'm surprised I actually killed for the shield form. And so I beat Wickstrom, and there's only 2 members left. So let's move on to the Water type Elite Four, Seabold. Zeebold? Whichever one you want. He leads with a Clawitzer and I lead with Life Guard. Life Guard hits a Crunch doing nothing, but getting the defense drop, and Clawitzer hits a Dragon Pulse doing a lot of damage. I switch to me to tank the next Dragon Pulse. And then I switch to Reaper because I'm expecting an Aura Sphere. Reaper puts the Clawitzer in the red with an Oblivion Wing, and the Clawitzer retaliates with a Water Pulse, but luckily he does not get a Confusion. On the next turn, Seabold heals the Clawitzer, but Oblivion Wing brings him back to yellow health. And finally, one Dark Pulse takes him down. The next Pokemon is Barbaracle. I switch to Autogoat, who tanks the Stone Edge pretty well. And afterwards, a 4 times effective Horn Leech is enough to destroy the Barbaracle. A Gyarados then comes in and intimidates Autogoat. And I think it's time to see why he taught me Thunderbolt. So I switch it to me as the Gyarados sets up with Dragon Dance. The Gyarados sets up yet another Dragon Dance, and my Thunderbolt does not kill him. For some absurd reason, the Gyarados hits an Ice Fang, and thanks to my Thick Fat ability, it doesn't do anything. Another Thunderbolt is enough to kill him. I will point out that he could have gone for Waterfall or Earthquake, but chose Ice Fang? Well anyway, the last Pokemon is Starmie. Starmie hits a Psychic and me lands a Yawn. The Starmie goes for Psychic again, and he actually crits, but me survives, and goes for a Thunderbolt, doing half of his HP. Starmie is now asleep, so I can switch to Reaper safely. And after a single Dark Pulse, the Starmie goes down and I beat Seabold. There's now only one Elite Four member between me and the champion. The last Elite Four member is Drazna, and she has a lot of dragons. She leads with a Dragalge as I lead with Reaper. Reaper hits a hard Dragon Claw, and then gets hit by a Thunderbolt and gets paralyzed. Drazna heals the Dragalge, but another Dragon Claw is enough to bring it back to about the same health. She heals Dragalge again on the next turn, and unfortunately I get paralyzed. Reaper gets hit by another Thunderbolt, but breaks through the paralysis and goes for a Dragon Claw. Reaper tanks yet another Thunderbolt, and breaks through again and finishes off the Dragalge with a final Dragon Claw. Drazna then sends in her Altaria. I'm scared of a Moonblast, so I switch into me, and the Moonblast indeed comes out. The Altaria misses a Sing, and me lands a Yawn. The Altaria then misses another Sing, and me hits a hard Body Slam doing a lot of damage considering how bulky Altaria is. The Altaria being asleep means me can go for another Body Slam and finish her off. Next comes in Druddigon. I switch to Reaper, and Druddigon misses her Dragon Tail. Reaper hits an Oblivion Wing, healing, and Druddigon misses a Dragon Tail again. I'm really getting lucky with all these misses. Reaper hits a Dragon Claw and the Druddigon goes down. Noivern is the last Pokemon. Noivern hits a Dragon Pulse and I get paralyzed. It seems my luck is starting to turn around because the exact same turn happens, I get paralyzed again. On the next turn, Reaper finally breaks through the Power Check and hits a Dragon Claw. Then it's just a matter of breaking through the paralysis again, and I win the battle against Drazna. It's time for the final battle against the Pokemon League champion, the only trainer in the Kalos region who has 6 Pokemon, Diantha. She leads with a Holucha and I lead with Reaper. The Holucha goes for a Flying Press and Reaper one-shots with Oblivion Wing, hitting all the damage back. Next comes in Tyrantrum. I switch to Vayne on a Head Smash. Vayne then survives Dragon Claw and one-shots with a God-boosted superpower. Next Pokemon is Goodra. I switch back to Reaper on a Dragon Pulse. A Dragon Claw puts Goodra in the red, and Goodra fires another Dragon Pulse. Diantha is about to heal Goodra, so I go for Oblivion Wing to heal and to also not do enough damage for another heal. And so, like planned, thanks to the chip of Oblivion Wing, Dragon Claw kills the Goodra. Aurorus then comes in. I'm scared of some kind of ice move, so I go for U-turn and switch to Life Guard, but the Aurorus sets up a Reflect instead. However, the Reflect does not matter because Life Guard knows Brick Break, and so it goes through the Reflect and one-shot the Aurorus. Next is Goldgeist. I switch to Autogoat and the Goldgeist makes him a Ghost type using Trick or Treat. I'm expecting a Ghost move, so I switch to me, and the Goldgeist goes for Phantom Force. Phantom Force does not affect me, obviously, and I go for a Yawn. I switch to Autogoat, expecting Sap Sipper to proc, but instead the Goldgeist goes for Trick or Treat again. The Goldgeist is now asleep, so I safely switch to Nod Durant. The Goldgeist stays asleep on the next turn, and one Flamethrower is enough to take her down. The last Pokemon is Gardevoir, and yes, I do know that it's a Mega Gardevoir. I switch it to me and the Gardevoir Mega Evolves, and then goes for a Psychic, and it does absolutely nothing. And then, after taking one Moonblast, me goes for a Heavy Slam and obliterates the Gardevoir, making me the champion of the Kalos region and winning me the Nuzlocke. And that's it. That's my entire journey to being Pokemon Y for the very first time, blind, while completing my very first hardcore Nuzlocke. Thank you so much if you've made it this far into the video. A lot of work went into this, and even though this video is probably not as good as what other poketubers can make, I hope it was still entertaining enough to watch. I'm going to be doing the post-game content on my own time without the Nuzlocke rules, so I can see how much there is. Also, I'm going to give a quick review of what I thought about the game. You can also find a playlist of the playthrough without any edits in the description. If you only came here for the Nuzlocke, then you can leave now, but if you want to hear about my thoughts on this game, then feel free to stay. So, what did I think of Pokemon Y? Well, obviously there is some good and some bad. I hated that you're stuck with the roller skates for the entire game, and I had to Google how to run without them. I also hated that HMs were still a very required thing for a lot of good items like TMs, or for simply progressing like with Surf and Waterfall. My frustration with HMs really originates from playing Ultra Moon and Pokemon Sword first though, so it should be taken with a grain of salt. As far as the difficulty goes, I think I would have been really bored if I didn't play through this game with hardcore Nuzlocke rules. It is insane to me that the only trainer of the full team is the champion of the region. I've also heard that it's very easy to zoom past the game's level progression, but that didn't quite happen during my playthrough. I think this must be because I turned the XP share off as soon as I got it, but I can see how this would make the game even easier. I do have to give some merit to Lysander though, as he was the only trainer where I thought I could lose the run by getting swept by his Minchow. There's nothing inherently wrong about the game being easy, after all that's just how they chose to make the game. But it does leave a sour taste for veteran players when you can steamroll the game without too much effort. For the plot, like I said, I'm not someone who's too focused on the plot, and I think it's very hard for the game after Black and White to do better than Black and White did. I didn't find Lysander to really be a compelling villain, and none of your quote friends really felt relevant. Mega Evolutions was supposed to be this generation's entire appeal, and its main gimmick, but after I lost my Mega Lucario, I never got the opportunity to use a Mega Evolution ever again, because most of the Mega Stones are locked behind the post-game. I think that's a shame, because Mega Evolution is a really cool mechanic, and I felt like I didn't really get to experience it in the game it's from. Overall, I'd say Pokemon Y is a decent entry in the series. It's missing some of the quality of life changes that would be later introduced in Sun and Moon, like no longer needing HMs. But I think its Pokemon designs are great, the Mega Evolution designs are great, the music is fantastic, and maybe the post-game will surprise me. Thank you again to everybody who watched this video to the very end. Like if you liked it, and do all the other things to appeal to the algorithm. It's gonna be a while until I embark on such a project again, I think. This really gave me a new appreciation for how hard it is to make a good and well-edited video, and I have a newfound respect for every creator making Pokemon videos like this one. One of my main inspirations for making this was actually FlygonHG. I basically copied his intro style where he blows the background, and watched how he edited the battles in his videos to try and edit mine better. But anyway, I should stop stretching this video to be past the 1 hour mark. Thank you for watching one last time. I am out.